at lunchtime yet? Can eat early. It looks really good.
Hey,
See you again.
Yeah, seems like it's just seen you.
Yeah.
15 seconds, boys.
I hate. Before that.
Now before the storm. That never happens. That's the same way.
No storm.
Yes, there is no storm. No storm. Absolutely, right to the point. Let's just get her done. All right. Good evening, or good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Those that are able, if you would stand with me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chair. Morning. All right, we're gonna look to Tabitha. First of all, she's gonna give me a head nod. Yeah, all right. She's got no additions or
Make a motion to
deletions for
approve,
the
Mr. Chair.
agenda. We've got a motion to approve our agenda. Is there a second? Got a motion and a second. Discussion on our agenda. Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. I will ask the board if anyone is interested in pulling anything from our consent agenda for further discussion. If not, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? And hearing none, gentlemen, this is going to be a roll call vote. Commissioner Blaine,
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher,
Aye.
Lemire,
Aye.
Casper,
Aye.
and myself, Commissioner Jelinski, is an aye vote. That motion passes. Our consent agenda has been approved. We're now going to move into item number 5 on our agenda, and that's going to be land services. I'm going to turn to Miss Amy. Miss Amy, if you would come and take a seat, please, introduce yourself and let us know what's happening.
Will do. All right, good morning.
Morning, Amy.
Morning.
I'm Amy Kowalczyk. I'm the Land Services Director. And I have one item for you, and this is to consider the amendment to the conditional use permit for Camp Chaminade. And if you recall, this is to change the square footage for master plans items 6 and 7. So item 6 would increase from 5,750 square feet to 10,000. And item 7 square footage would increase from 12,500 to 23,500. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at their last meeting with 3 conditions. The 3 conditions are the camp shall not allow patrons and staff to utilize soaps and other cleansers within Lake Chaminade. 2, the camp shall not allow horses and other livestock to enter the waters of Lake Chaminade. And 3, associated stormwater controls from the submitted stormwater plan shall be implemented during construction of items 6 and 7 as authorized by this conditional use permit amendment.
Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we've got a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Further discussion on Camp Chaminade?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I had one, it's not, yeah, it does pertain to Camp Chaminade. There was discussion made about your ability to move forward with certain things if it
Yes.
isn't changed too much, whatever come out of that.
Great question. So this was really the actionable item that came out of that. But then we also had some discussion with the Planning Commission about, and which I plan to carry forward to you to get some guidance from you on these were changes made to items that were already within an approved master plan. So the items 6 and 7 were already identified. It's just the square footage change. And so we had some discussion about what the comfort level is for changes to items that have already been approved within the master plan and how much change could be allowed administratively without needing to come for a public hearing every time. And so the guidance that I received from the planning commission was their comfort level was about a 15% change in square footage was what they were comfortable with us handling administratively in the office. So that was really what came out of that discussion. But I certainly want to have that discussion with the county board as well to see if you concur, if you have different ideas.
Is that something you'd like, sorry,
Please.
like us to do today, or is that something you want to bring to us in the future?
So, Mr. Chair, I think we have 2 items. This is the actionable item.
Yep.
And so I do need a decision on this. And then today, depending on how much discussion you want to have about that, if you are feel sure about what you're okay with and you can give me guidance today, great. If you want me to put it on a planning session, then I'm comfortable with that as well. It's up to you.
I think we'll, planning session, huh, Mr. Chair?
We can certainly do this on a planning session. It's fine with me. I have
That's
no
all I
problem
got.
with that at all.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
All right.
And Miss Amy, I have no problem with it coming before us in a planning meeting. Would that be something that would have to be something that had to be brought to an agenda?
No.
Okay.
No, it's really just a discussion and direction that I'm
this-
asking for. So that certainly can be done in a planning session. It's nothing that you would really have to take any action
And
on.
just for the sake of argument, as long as you're still here, 15%, would 15% have covered this item that we just approved?
No,
This item would take in approximately what, 20%?
it's about
100%?
50, yeah,
Okay.
about
Yeah,
100%. It's a doubling of both.
So it would, in essence, would be 100%, not
Correct.
50,
Yes.
would be 100%. And of course, 100% is like kind of sort of starting from scratch in a sense. So beautiful,
Yes.
understood. Thank you very
Hey,
much.
When this,
Yeah.
what we're gonna have the discussion, Mr. Chair, is for, because there's a more of a cost to bring it to a public hearing than there is to get
For
it over counter. So
Without a
that's
question.
what that's kind of the discussion we'll.
Correct. And really the value of bringing it, if you've already approved the structure, if it needs to come back because it's changing in square footage, if it's still meeting all the performance standards, that's the discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Okay, number 6 on our agenda this morning, Public Works Report. Tony, come on. Tony, I'm thinking you have just a little bit more for us today than a resolution, but we'll just take it one step at a time.
5 minutes.
That's right, like anybody else.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
Morning, Tony.
Tony Hennon, Morrison County Engineer and Public Works Director. I have 2 items for you this morning. Our first item is a request to authorize a resolution of support for Little Falls Township. They have intentions of applying for the LRIP grant, Local Road Improvement Program. It's a grant that townships can apply for regionally significant roads. Matt, if you'll turn the page here. They're looking at 180th Avenue. So that runs in between 27, Cassaw 35. They feel like this is a good candidate for the program. And part of that application requires a resolution of support from the county board. That's what I'm here to present to you this morning.
I'll make a motion for more discussion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, further discussion.
Again, this is in my district, obviously, but this is also the trail road that's the 4-wheel trail will be on them, I believe, correct? Because it's right next to the landfill.
It's in the same location. The north-south run of that trail isn't 100% identified at this time, but this is one of those applicable roads that could be on there.
Okay, yeah, that's what that they're looking at, yeah, so, and I believe the Little Falls Township stuck a substantial amount of money in this road already, probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep, so their application is actually going to be to pave this road. So what they're going to be doing is reviewing the geometrics of the road. So recently they added structural strength to it. However, their inslopes don't exactly meet state aid standards, but because of the classification of the road, they may be able to go underneath a different standard, AASHTO standard, it's a national standard. And their consulting engineer, WSB, has already reached out to the state aid engineers and had that discussion. So the township's comfortable with moving forward with this kind of application, not meeting some of those state aid standards.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Tony, this is certainly a resolution of support, and I get that very clearly. This is not to bring county resources in necessarily, and certainly not against having a discussion or nothing like that. But that's not what it's about. It's simply a resolution of support.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. So with this resolution of support, there's also a sponsorship agreement. Little Falls Township Board's already signed that agreement. And what that does is states the roles of each of them. So if they were selected for this grant, Morrison County or the Public Works Department would essentially act as the fiduciary for their project. We would take the funds from the state and then distribute them back to the township after their work's completed within those standards that are being met. So all this action this morning would be to enter into that sponsorship agreement, and that's only active if they're selected for the grant. And then two, a resolution of support for them to submit that application that Morrison County is willing to take that fiduciary responsibility for them if they're selected.
Perfect. Further discussion from the board?
Mr. Chair, if we could just address those as two separate actions. So the first would be to enter into a sponsorship agreement with Falls Township.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the second would be to provide the sponsorship resolution of support. So
Okay, so we have a motion for what? That's the first question.
I don't see that on there, Mr. Chair. I just see the resolution. What else is on here?
so what's on your screen now is a sponsorship agreement. This
Okay.
is the agreement that the township has already entered into. There's the room for the county board. And then here's the sponsorship resolution of endorsement for the county board. There's just two separate actions.
And we should do these
I
individually.
would do them individually, Mr. Chair.
So mine was for the resolution, because
Yep.
that was what it came aboard from us first. So that's what
And
my,
I don't know that we have to do these in any order. So what we're talking about right now is the resolution of support.
Yep.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution of support for Little Falls Township for that application is now passed.
And then the sponsorship agreement.
And then we'll look for the sponsorship agreement. I'd look for a motion.
so moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Further discussion on the sponsorship agreement. Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Commissioner Lemire was.
That's okay. We got it. Not a problem. Tony, thank you. Is that all you got, really?
No,
I kind of thought there was.
I have our annual public works updates. You're
All right.
gonna get me for a little bit
Yeah,
here.
that's all right.
So
Please, Tony, continue.
this was a little big to throw in your agenda.
That's
Plus, I
not a
was waiting for
problem.
pictures for the project that got completed on Friday.
Not a problem whatsoever.
So here's a
Please
little
carry
recap of some of the items that have been happening in Public Works here in the winter of 22-23 and then this summer. So if we flip the page here, we'll do a little construction. So looking at our 2023 transportation improvements, there's a picture of our CASA 1. That project was paved in September, wrapped up here in October. Matt, if you go to the next slide.
Say calendar.
Yeah, a very pretty picture.
Where the bats at? Were they on there?
Probably. But no, they weren't in that picture because we constructed that during that time frame. They weren't
there.
So here's our 2022 or 2023 contract summary. We had a pretty busy summer there, just shy of $10 million worth of projects. They were spread across the county. Some of our larger projects, we had our CASA 6 bridge that just wrapped up last Friday. It is now open to traffic. We had the CASA 1 photo that you just saw. That was from Randall up to CASA 5. A nice reclaim project, and then some safety improvements with sinusoidal edges and paving. We also had one of our more premier projects was our County Road 234 North Hawthorne and City of Royalton. That was a reconstruct with the City of Royalton. Included ADA and pedestrian improvements, parking lanes and sidewalks, as well as all their utility upgrades.
So if I may, Mr. Chair,
Please.
question, why is the word lost in a few of these columns?
So in your funding over there, that's how these different projects were funded. So and you can go through all the different ones. You'll see federal, which is a LBRP, Local Bridge Replacement Program funding. So it's funding coming outside of our county. The CASA is our regular funding. Those come from your gas taxes. Next one down, HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program. So these are grants that we apply for safety improvement projects. In this case, we had, this was actually a combination. Our CASA 1 project had both a federal STIP block grant, so federal funding for our project, and then we were able to parlay that into an additional grant for our Sinosula Edge line and a little bit of shoulder paving. So those are funds that are coming outside the county. When you see lost there, that's your local option sales tax. So local option sales tax is a board authorized action that allows Morrison County to collect a 0.5-cent sales tax inside our county. And what that does is it provides us with a means of supplementing our construction program. Lost funds account for 20 to 30% of our yearly program. They make a huge difference in Morrison County. You'll notice on there's multiple lost projects. To be eligible to use those funds, we have a list of, or an aggregate list of projects that Morrison County has already approved and we're authorized to use those funds on. So if a road is not listed on that project list, we can't use those lost funds. So that's what you're seeing there. So in the case of, let's see. Well, there's a few different ones.
And again, Mr. Chair, I knew what lost was these acronyms, but I just wanted the public to know because
Yeah.
some of those are.
Yeah, so for example, County Road 234, North Hawthorne and Royalton there, that was a combination of local option sales tax funds that funded that project. And then because it was a joint project, the city of Royalton had funding involved with their utilities. You'll notice in our paving program down there, contract 310, there's a lot of lost funds being utilized down there. Those help do the reconstruction outside of piers on 253 there. We're also allocated funding towards 254. So it just really supplements our program versus only using county levy dollars for your local roads. And then our last funding source, you'll just see county, and those are local or county levied dollars that are inside of our budget that we account for construction with.
Please, I think that answered it. Carry on.
Absolutely. So I'll go to the next page here. There's a kind of a picture of our 234 North Hawthorne. You can see some of the ADA improvements there on the right, as well as a pedestrian improvement. So what we did here, formerly the road crossed on the west side or the left side of the picture was where the sidewalk crossed. We had a lot of issues with students not being seen when they're crossing that road. That's CASA 26 running east-west. Those pictures taken were on County or CASA 52 and then North Hawthorne's to the north or County Road 234. So what we did is we realigned that crosswalk to make those pedestrians more visible. We also added a rapid flashing beacon also to give them a little more visibility and alert those drivers when they push a button that there's a pedestrian trying to cross. We added the ADA compliance. You can't really see it in the picture, but you'll see the ramps that are wheelchair compliant and a lot more accessible for individuals that use those, as well as our metal strips in front of those that allow, if someone's blind, to feel where they're near the edge of the curb. As you kind of look toward the north there or down 234, you'll see a parking lane on the left side. So that providing additional parking in that area, as well as sidewalk down the majority of that project. So now students have an easier way to access their school. The high school would be right to our right off the picture.
If I may, Mr. Chair, all this is really a big improvement, but to me, the biggest improvement is your white lines because people were taking a right-hand turn. They thought that was a right hand, and that really eliminated a lot of that problem.
Yeah, so by adding that gore area there, it originally wasn't set up like that in the plan set, but as we had conversations with the city of Royalton and the Royalton School District, that was one of the concerns they had. And it was a economic fix, not to say it's going to fix everything, but it's an economic way to highlight that area and say you shouldn't be over here. So what the issue that Commissioner Winter was referring to is a bus would be pulled up to that stop sign and would be trying to maybe take a left or something, having to wait for traffic. And then you'd have someone sneak up inside them to take a right. So with that gore area, it just brings a little more attention, say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. So it's an economic way. We'll see how it lasts. The other thing we did there is we bumped out the radius a little bit, and that moves that pedestrian forward. And so when a vehicle is stopped there, the CSAH 26 traffic can see that pedestrian a little bit better.
So, Mr. Chair,
Please.
so Tony, can a person still take a right there? You just can't pull into that side area?
Yes, Commissioner Casper, that's correct.
Okay.
It's intended as a single lane. It's not intended to be a right turn lane. And that's
I
where
see.
people are utilizing that additional width. South of where that gore area is, there's parking area up and down that. And instead of necking the curbing in, that was a decision to leave it straight, mainly for snow removal on 52. And people were just taking advantage of a situation they maybe shouldn't have.
Looks like a great remedy.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
so far, I think it's been working really well. It's definitely a great improvement on 234, so we'll continue to monitor how it functions. Go to our next page here. It's kind of a map of all the different projects all around. So we were kind of spread out all over the county this year. We did have some 22 carryover project. So we had our boxes on 47, 1, and 26. And then last year, actually in 22, we completed the Township 220 in that southwest corner there. So kind of all over the county this year, a lot of road construction going on. We had a good summer for road construction, and our projects went very well this year. So we pop to the next page there. That's the CSAH 6 bridge that just opened on Friday to traffic. So this was quite the improvement. So we have a wider bridge, we have shoulders, we did approach grading to the south. So we added a little bit of shoulder work and addressed the ditches. And one of the bigger things you'll see is that road turns and actually tees into CSAH 12 now. Previously, it came in at an angle, it was a little bit dangerous. So by putting that curve in there and having it tee up at a right angle, it's a lot safer for traffic entering onto CSAH 12, a lot more visibility for those drivers. Nice project. We'll see how that grass comes up next spring, but definitely an improvement. And I think everyone's very happy to have it open. Go over our next page here. This is our 2023 pavement markings. This is a maintenance contract. So what we do every year, we try to stripe roughly a third of the county. Striping is a low cost, high value item that improves the safety on your county roads. So this year we were kind of in that southwest corner. We do have some roads that don't fit that description. You'll see we did part of 1 up there. Some of our higher volume roads will opt to stripe every year or every other year or something like that. So that's why you see some of those oddballs outside of that region. Next, so if you remember from last year, we were kind of over in the western part of the county. So we did that south third roughly. Next year we'll be kind of doing the central and northern third for pavement striping. That's a annual thing. We budget or levy dollars specifically for that safety improvement. It's great use of our funding and provide safer roads for our users. Pop to the next page there. So there's a profile of that CSAH 6 bridge. One of the things now that our construction season's wrapping up, our engineering staff's out doing safety inspections on all your bridges. We have 224 structures here. So we do roughly 80 a year. So on a new structure, even this one, we have an inspection before it's open to traffic. This picture was pulled from that inspection report. If you go to the next page there, you'll see kind of our list. It's list of the bridges we're inspecting this year. We're doing 74 of those 224. This is based on the different structural criteria of our bridges. So in the state of Minnesota, anything that spans more than 10 feet is considered a bridge. On national standard, it's 20, but we're a little more conservative with some of our past history in Minnesota. So yeah, our bridge team leaders are out doing these inspections right now. Some took place in September, a bunch took place in October. There'll be some going on here in November. And that'll be all of our safety inspections for the year. If you go to the next page, you'll see some of the defects that we're looking for and monitoring. So this is our County Road 223 bridge. You'll notice some of the timber piling are starting to see their end of life. So what we're doing is on these kind of structures where they're becoming structurally deficient, it's a yearly monitoring, and we're watching how much this structure changes, just to continue to make sure that our bridges are safe for their users. County Road 225 kind of transitions into our next page. So we have some 2024 improvements that are already on the docket. And County Road 225 bridge is one of them. So you'll notice that those piling, though they're safe at this point, or they're starting to see their end of life. We're able to get that in our bridge replacement program. So the 225 is going to get replaced with a large box culvert structure, probably a triple line. What's happening there is we applied for some federal funding. It's called a BROS grant, bridge replacement off system. So it's not on one of our arterial highways essentially. So we're receiving funding for that. We're also going to be doing a CASA 1 bridge, just a little bit. Well, CASA 1 would be to the east of that 225 bridge. So that'll be on there. That's part of our local bridge replacement or the local bridge replacement program. So those are some external funds that are coming in to help facilitate these bridge replacement projects. Our 2024 paving program isn't solidified at this point. You know, we do have some high priority roads that will be on there for sure. One of them, CASA 47 from Trunk Highway 371 to 25 will be on the list next year. And then we're seeing where our funding can take us based on our estimates for the year.
Chair, I have a question for Tony.
Fire away.
Culvert versus timber. Why are we not putting timber in there versus culvert? Is the longevity for culvert better? Costs? Is it, can you answer those, please?
It's multiple different reasons. It depends on the structure. So a bridge allows for that stream to be completely open. Culverts obviously have different wing walls coming or centerline walls coming up if you have multiple culvert lines in there. And what it comes down to is economics and maintenance. You know, timber structures, you know, they typically have a 50-year life roughly. And, you know, we're seeing longer lifespan, 75 to 100 out of big concrete box culverts. And then from there, whether or not the hydraulics can allow a culvert or this also the soils, if a soil can support a culvert, those go into our decision makings. From a maintenance perspective, a culvert has a lot less maintenance, a lot less inspection. And then as well as being able to extend the edges or the critical points where a vehicle could travel off the road and go into that stream away from your traffic or your center line. It just sometimes is a safer option and more economics.
Makes perfect sense to me. Wow. Excellent.
So yeah, Parks and Trails, we had some friends out there this year. I know everyone kind of enjoyed those. But yeah, so Drew, our environmental recreational manager, was busy out at Bellberry Park a bunch this year. To go to the next page. We were executing different the Oak Savannah restoration projects through there. We had some tree clearing early on in the excuse me, the 2023 season, and then it kind of got into a different phase. You'll see that phase 2 buckthorn. And that's where that goat picture came from. We had goats out there in July. A lot of the public really enjoyed them. And they did a very fun or interesting job. If you go to the next slide there, you'll see your before and afters. You have your buckthorn there on the left. Afterwards, after those goats came through, they took care of a bunch of it. Obviously, it's not a permanent process. You probably have to do it a couple times, but it was definitely a creative way to take care of a buckthorn problem. So a lot of positive feedback from the community on that, and it was definitely well received. You go to the next one there.
Tony, if we can go back one.
Absolutely.
Just for one quick question. Is the plan to continue to do this perhaps next year, perhaps the year after? And if we do that several years in a row, will it then rid us from that buckthorn problem?
We'll, Mr. Chair, we'll monitor the buckthorn out there, whether or not we bring goats back out next year or not.
Okay.
We'll just have to see. Yeah.
Okay.
After this was done, we did bring our mulcher out.
Okay.
We have a skid steer mulcher in the maintenance, and we did some mulching to clean it up a little bit further. But yeah, in the future, we may bring those goats back out. It was a very economical way to do it. We had grant funding for it, so there wasn't a lot of levied trail and park dollars utilized for it. But yeah, we'll have to continue to monitor it. But the plan for that Oak Savannah is to get it restored to its
Excellent.
original.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Next page here, we had a kind of a unique machine out on the Sioux Line Trail. You can see on the top left there, that was the trail. It was starting to get kind of grown in from the foliage trees, stuff like that. And what we ended up doing is we had a contractor come in, you'll see his machine on the right. So that's a very specialized forestry skid steer, and then a piece of equipment called the limb beaver. Essentially, it was a mowing type of implement that you could rotate. And he just kind of cruised down the trail and trimmed some of that back. And you'll see the bottom left there. That's what it looked like when it was all done. Our maintenance staff came behind, mulched sticks, and then took away some of that grown up vegetation along the edge of the pavement so the water could flow off. Nice improvement project, just something unique I thought I'd touch on because you don't see that kind of piece of equipment very often. It's kind of fun. All right, so maintenance had a very busy year. There's one of our pictures from the 2023 winter season, but we'll kind of touch on that last. If you go to the next slide there, Matt. So this past summer, maintenance was really busy. They did 12 different centerline culvert tapers. So what that consists of, them digging down, removing a centerline pipe that's failing, replacing it, and then tapering it out at a 10-to-1 from basically a third of the way down the pipe. And what that does is it helps that culvert ride better in the future and survive some of the freeze thaw cycles a little bit better. So we had a bunch of that going on. They also replaced 64 access culverts, so they were really running around a lot, putting in a lot of culverts this summer. And that's not to stop the rest of their operations. We had our routine patching, crack sealing. This year we rented a mastic machine. So you'll see them applying that mastic there. It's a bituminous product that has a fine aggregate that's in there. It works really well for cupping, and it's supposed to be a long-term maintenance. So we rented that twice this summer. We're pretty happy with the results of it. So we'll kind of monitor that and probably continue to rent it a bit in the future. And then of course we've been doing our mowing, brushing, sign maintenance as you go around the county. If you go to the next one. And we just wrapped up snowplow safety. We're coming into winter. So every year we try to get out to all the elementary schools, do snowplow safety. This year we visited 11 elementary schools, talked to 599 second graders about snowplow safety. Typically it's very well received, and it provides a wonderful benefit. Our equipment when we're out there maintaining the roads is very dangerous, and as younger students, they see it and they're very interested in that equipment, and sometimes they get a little close to it. So this gives them an opportunity to be up close and personal with the plow, see what it's like, and then actually have conversations with our staff, our drivers out there on, where they want them. You see the plow go by, don't be standing right up there along the shoulder of the road. It's just very dangerous. So if you flip to the next one, they do an outside tutorial with the trucks, and they talk about it inside in the actual classroom. So our staff does a very nice job with that community outreach. If you go to the next one.
Tony, that's one of the coolest things that your agency, your department can possibly do. And please don't misunderstand. Your department takes care of roads. I got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put that aside. Anytime that you can touch these kids with any of this stuff, I just have to tell you, and I follow that. That is absolutely one of the best things that your agency can do. And thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And all the guys, thank you for that. I mean, and you notice they didn't bring a dirty truck either. I appreciate it. Very cool.
We try to bring our shiny ones out there.
Very nice.
But yeah, it's very well received. And, it works both ways. It's good for the community to be around our equipment, to get understanding for it, and then how to act safe around it as well. So they always send some thank you cards. I thought these were very artistic, so I enjoyed throwing those in there for you to take a peek at.
I have Tony read them.
It says, thank you.
No, the other one.
Oh, the right side. You see
You
me.
keep everyone to keep us safe, to keep the roads clean so we can see.
Beautiful.
All
Here
right.
for you, Tony.
That's your brand new truck there too.
Did you write that, Tony?
I am an engineer,
I
very
like it.
poor at spelling, so it's not too different than that. But yeah, so a little recap on our 2023, or 2022, 2023 plow season. We had quite the winter last year. We actually sent our crew out 47 times, the full crew. That doesn't include your partial sends. So to that amount of snow and that many sends is a lot of strain on our staff, and they handled it very well. I can't say enough about our maintenance technicians and our supervisors and the phenomenal job they do. They handled it well. Had a very successful season and really took care of our roads really well. You know, you'll see that, I just always like to put that, we average about 28, we were at 47 last year. And that doesn't include the partial sends. We were probably north of 60 with partial sends.
Let's try and get back to average this.
Yeah, or less would be really nice, you know. So you go to the next page there. You know, just to give you an idea, we have a very large system here in Morrison County. You know, we total 728 miles, and that's center lane miles. So when you think about a plow truck going, you know, you make one pass each direction, and then you make a second pass each direction to widen that out. And that's if it quits snowing. So you're making multiple passes. The staff is working a lot of long hours, and I'm just very grateful for the work they do. If you go to the next one there. So here's just kind of a map of our plow routes. You can see they're kind of all over. A little bit hard to read, but gives you an idea. The green dots are 3 different shops. If you'll go to the next one, please. So we have 20 plow routes. You know, we talked a little bit last year about having to shift some of our trucks around. We're still on that schedule this year with our building addition not completed at this point. But so you'll be seeing 8 trucks coming out of our Little Falls shop, 6 coming out of Piers, and 6 coming out of Randall. You know, our routes are approximately 45 miles. That includes the drive time to get to the route. And then that doesn't include all the extra passes. So that's, again, that's just center lane miles. So, you know, they're making 3-4 passes, you know, it turns into 180, 200 miles or sometimes more. And then that's 6 to 8 hours to complete a route. Go to the next page. You know, when you think about road, a wonderful interactive map, I always like to tell everyone, check out 511 if you're curious about road conditions. They do a nice job updating that, and you can typically tell if a trunk highway, which would be shown here, if their stuff's done. Usually our roads are not far behind, or sometimes with a little luck we're in front of them too. So I was going to end there, but I figured I'd throw in just a little bit of a building update. So there's a picture of our interior of our addition right now. So you can see the roof's on, steel's on, all our walls are up, concrete floors in, and they're starting to go through all the mechanicals. So adding our different water fittings, our different heating and our different heating elements and air exchangers, stuff like that. So we're just getting into the nitty gritty of it. You know, we're still on schedule, hopefully, to be moving in there this February, or knock on wood, maybe a little bit earlier. So that'll be a blessing when we're able to utilize that. If you go to the next page, kind of a fun update.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
thank you. Tony, just gonna ask, do you sprinkle a building like this? And the reason I ask, after that terrible fire last summer, I was just,
Fire suppression?
yes,
Yes, there are.
okay.
Yep, and you know, our other building, the one that was built in 2005, 2006 has a sprinkler system. The previous one, I don't remember if it did or not, but yeah, this will have a full fire suppression system.
Thank you.
Excellent. Please continue.
And you go to the next one, seeing some exterior progress. This was taken yesterday, so we're starting to see the outside come together. So our pavement's going down. They're finishing the next lift today. So we'll have all that pavement and some of that exterior stuff done here today, and then they'll be getting it fenced in and be able to start utilizing a little bit of our additional parking lot that's being created and allow us to get situated as the interior of the building gets completed. That's all I got for you. Does anyone have any questions?
Anybody want to see more? Commissioner Winter?
I'm good, but I just want to let you know from my perspective and the people in my district and others, that group that did the plowing last year, they did such a great job. Normally I'll get a few calls, you know, why isn't this road? I did not get one phone call. And again, we had 47 different calls where there's snow. So again, please tell them they did a wonderful, great job. And then again, that just makes everything work so much better when those roads are cleared, you know, so.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like I mentioned earlier, we have fantastic maintenance technicians. We have fantastic supervisors, foremen, superintendent. And we're also lucky enough we have an intermittent roster. So when some of our full-time staff's on vacation, we're able to call some of those employees on that intermittent roster. They fill in. So then we're not down a plow route or anything like that. So we're very fortunate, and you know, we have hardworking, good staff here at Morrison County, and we're all very privileged to have them work for us.
Questions for Tony? Comments? Tony, thank you.
Tony.
Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
That's all I have, unless anyone has anything else.
Great report. Great.
Have a
Thank you,
great day.
Tony. Alrighty.
You too, Tony.
Move on to the administrator's report. Oh, my goodness sakes, this looks like it's not for the administrator. This looks like it's gonna be for Melissa and Beth.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. As Melissa and Beth are coming forward, I hope you're able to take some information today, and I'll let Melissa talk through it and then fill in any gaps where need be.
Please, thank you. Please introduce yourselves. We don't get to see you very often, Melissa.
No.
We see Beth once in a while, but please, both of you, if you introduce yourselves and tell us why you're here.
My name is Melissa Sineski. I do payroll for administration here at Morrison County. And I've been here just about 7 years.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board. Beth Hanlon, HR Manager for Morrison County.
Excellent. Please continue.
We are here this morning to talk about the project for compensation and classification, and then some vendor options, and then to provide a recommendation for a vendor to move forward with. Our recommendation this morning is to move forward with David Drown and Associates Human Resources for the following reasons. They have a long-standing relationship with Association of Minnesota Counties and access to the Minnesota County Salary Survey, which is done annually. I believe for 2023, 85 of the 87 counties responded to that. So it's a ton of great information they have access to. They are very familiar with Morrison County's current structure. They have been managing it for, I believe, the last 3 years. Our last compensation and classification project was put together about 27 years ago. And after Triad Consulting closed and Dorothy, our original manager of the compensation and classification, retired, they took it over and they've been managing it for us since. They have a ton of experience with human resource management, and compensation and classification is just one of the aspects that they are able to assist with. And then through references, we've determined that they have the ability and the history of staying on task with the timelines and budget. We sent out invitations for proposal to 5 different vendors that were recommended to us by AMC, Sourcewell, and our peers. And this is pretty much all of the vendors in Minnesota that handle this type of work. We did receive back 2 proposals of the 5. The first one from Flaherty and Hood, and the second one from DDA Human Resources. We did reach out to Baker Tilly, Gallagher, and BCC just to see why they didn't put in proposals. And it was basically just timing. They had too many projects on their plate and they didn't feel like they could commit to our projects. The main objectives that we put out are up on the screen here, and they we determined that all or both vendors were able to meet all of our main objectives that were put out there. Some additional objectives are on this next page, and these were important from a financial and an administrative perspective. We wanted to make sure that they can complete the project in time for the 2025 budgeting if we plan to implement. We wanted to make sure that the vendor has a history of exceptional product and service, specifically with county and public sector. We wanted to also make sure that the rating system was point-based. Minnesota counties are held to pay equity and other federal standards, so we needed to make sure that each position could be rated by points so you can compare across the board. And then we wanted internal and external comparables included. This next page here talks about, it just compares the 2 proposals from a pricing perspective. Pricing wise, pretty much across the board, they're very comparable. DDA is slightly higher by $42.50 on the full service package. The full service package includes review of policies, the current evaluation system, draft communication, and in-person meetings with our staff and leadership groups. They are going to, each vendor would distribute and collect job analysis questionnaires to staff. And then they'd review them, analyze them, and then they would develop a new system structure for us. They test it to all the state and federal laws and develop policy and do a final presentation to staff and leadership, as well as creating all of our documents and job descriptions. So we could be uniform and comply with ADA and FLSA law.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can we go back one slide, please?
Yep.
Just got one question. Or do you want me to wait?
Nope, go for it.
The very last line, what is
Mhm.
analyze other compensation, and David Drown put offered to not collect cost data with the.
So one of the questions that we had for the vendors was if they included other forms of compensation other than just salaries. So things like comparing shift diff, like what we pay for shift diff compared to like what other counties pay to shift diff. And then I put on some of the other ones was uniform pay, on-call pays, those types of things. Flaherty and Hood did compare. DDA didn't offer. They said that it's something that they could definitely look into and price out for us. But their feelings on it was that everyone's structure is so different that they're hard to compare. It's not comparing apples to apples. There's tons of other factors. And it's much easier to just compare salaries, essentially.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Just comparing the two proposals, we felt in administration that there's just definitely much less unknowns with DDA. We've worked with them on multiple other HR topics. They are definitely the most widely used by county government for this type of projects. And then with their access to the Minnesota County Salary Survey, we just felt like their information is going to be definitely much easier to gather, and they'd probably be able to stay on timeline best. After the proposals came in, administration did do reference checks, the ones that were provided by both of the vendors, and then also a handful of others that we just knew other peers were using. A handful of Flaherty and Hood references did cite some concern with meeting timeline. And then last week, we also conducted follow-up calls with the vendors just to clarify the proposals and make sure that we understood exactly what was in each of them. So then just to recap, we'd like to recommend DDA for the chosen vendor. And today we are looking for approval to enter into contract for a vendor, and Beth will go over those.
Yeah, so are there any
Questions?
questions before
Yeah.
we move towards the
Please.
RFP?
Commissioner Littleman.
Can you tell me how they go about? Do they go to each individual job and look at the job description and then speak to an individual that says exactly what they do in their job? Is that how they do this? I mean, like if you, let's say, I don't know, eligibility workers, there's
Yep.
probably 30 of them.
Right.
I don't know how many we got, but do they
Right,
go and speak to each one of them, or do they speak to their supervisor? How do they get the gist of what their job is?
Yep.
okay.
So our understanding is that they would collect, it's called a PAQ for each person in every single position. And then they would put all of that information together to make one PAQ for each job description. And that's how they do it. So that it's not necessarily individual meetings with each employee, but each employee has the ability to submit their information for what they do. And then they're actually going to put together new job descriptions for us. So it's been a long time since they've all been updated. And as we post jobs, we, look at job descriptions and update as we see fit. But there's been a lot of positions that haven't been replaced and haven't been looked at for quite a long time.
Commissioner Blaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we looking at all 260 some positions within the county and doing this in a 3-year breakout? In other words, doing a third of those a year? Is that the proposal that's going to be in front of us
What I think we'd want to do, Mr. Chair, is look at all positions and job classes that we have within the county at this initial comp and class study. The result of the study will drive the implementation timeline.
As to where we're gonna
See,
go.
they're gonna do them all, but the implementation may take longer.
Right.
That could be a third, and a third, which kind of, to me,
Yep.
makes sense.
We think we're competitive as Morrison County. We haven't had a real good look from the outside in 27 years. If we are competitive, then maybe all changes can be implemented quickly. If we are off, then that'll be a further discussion with the board as we can prepare for the budget seasons on how we can get more aligned and more competitive with compensation and comparables.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm trying to tee up or line up the costs with the timing and with what was shown on the screen here. So to pull this off, David Drown figures, and we set timelines were set, but by the end of 2025, this would have to be completed.
We're asking DDA to have this study complete toward the end of first quarter so we can incorporate any changes into the 2025 budget. So we can get the payroll information out summer of 24 to be included into the 25 budget.
So the beginning of the first quarter of 25.
No, first quarter of 24 is when the study will conclude. And the results of the study would feed the information into payroll and discussions with the board of what to implement and how to implement any changes that are needed or recommended.
Okay, spring of next year, we would have results.
That's the plan, Mr. Chair. And again, and I appreciate you bringing it up, Commissioner Blaine, because timing of this is so crucial. And to have us meet that timing so we can incorporate their findings if they need to be incorporated. The department heads begin working on their budgets in May and June, so we can have a good product to come before the board in September.
Yeah. And so whether it's relevant or not, I'm surprised that DDA could do this much work and do this, and we're asking for a pretty in-depth analysis and have that done. We're at the 1st of November in my world right now. So we're talking less than 6 months. They're gonna have this done.
And Mr. Chair, frankly, that's why 3 of the 5 vendors we asked to consider us weren't able to because of that aggressive timeline.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the other question I have then is the costs to the county paid to DDA to do this is X.
$64,250.
64,250.
That qualifies as lost revenue. ARPA expenses would be our recommendation of where those funds come from.
Okay, and so there would not be any ancillary costs to David Drown after that. The only other adjustments in funding or adjustments made would be if we have to make adjustments to payroll.
And Mr. Chair, the resolution before the board today is asking to approve up to $70,000 to include contingency funds if there is something that comes up in the process.
Mr. Chair, I have just one more question, if I may. In this process, let's say over the next 6 months, that's kind of a rough scale, but will there be dedication of time by staff on a regular basis that has to be taken into account to be able to achieve this?
Mr. Chair, we're expecting that the vendor to do the heavy lifting on this, and that's why we're bringing a third party and for their expertise. But there will certainly be work that is shared. We need to hear from the employees on the truth of what their job and their role is, and then we need supervisors to review that and provide input on it. So there will be input by the staff as well as leadership in the county on a regular basis to feed that information to the vendor for this project.
So, Mr. LeBlanc, I'll be more direct. Will there be defined time that's devoted by Ms. Sanowski, Ms. Hamlin, yourself, on a regular basis, to achieve this goal? Or will that be more, unscheduled communication?
Mr. Chair, it'll be our touch points with the vendor to ensure they're on track, to make sure they're receiving the information they need. It will be, it's not a fire and forget and look away, but we will put in what we need to keep this project on track.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wincher.
Few maybe comments and a couple of questions. When you say everyone will be part of the classifications, that included elected officials, that's number one. Number two is, in my experience in listening to other counties that have done this, some of them gotten into the millions of dollars that they were either under or, the comp and study. So it could get expensive for the county when this is done, because of the fact maybe we are low in some areas. Another thing is that when this comp study comes back, does it say, you know what, in this area, we're heavy as far as staff members? In this area, are we low on staff members? Does it do that? And what was my final one? So when this comes out, if we are, halfway, we're okay with our wages, but maybe we're high and low, does that make the county say, you know what, we're gonna cut your wages or we're gonna increase your wages? Is that gonna be something that the board is gonna have to consider, or do we just have to go by what this comp study has done? Lots of stuff
Yeah,
out there.
no, thank you, Commissioner Winter. Mr. Chair, for the elected officials by statute, we're not to follow a pay scale.
Yep.
So they wouldn't be. However, we reference our pay scale when we bring before the board, again, recommended salaries. So it wouldn't be as the answer officially, but you may see some residual results because of it. The $1 million, if we're off by millions, across the staff, again, that'll be discussed in the implementation and execution plan on how the county can adjust to that. If it is, I would call it a worst case scenario, is if we're off by a large amount. This is not a manpower study. A manpower study would look at the positions based on workload, and if we have the right number of people, that is not included in a comp and classification. And then as far as the high and low, that is the goal, is to get that kind of feedback from the vendor to tell us where do we sit and where and what adjustments need to be made. A best practice that we've heard from other counties is to share with the staff. Nobody will be reduced, but some may gain more than others, which is the truth. And we may be off in some positions further than in others. And that's, that's part of this process, and that's part of the third party vendor that helps level those bubbles and get us on the same sheet. So it will most likely not be a blanket adjustment across the entire organization.
Commissioner Wincher, did that help?
You bet it. I mean, answer again for the people out there too, because again, not everybody, like our administrator stated, will get, an increase in their pay just because, I'm gonna use Commissioner Lemire. He is underpaid, so we're gonna give him an increase. That doesn't mean that everybody else in his area is gonna get a raise. That's how you explain it, correct?
Absolutely correct, Commissioner.
How it works. Commissioner Blaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Wincher used the elected officials or the board as an example who may not be,
No, I did not use that.
not the board.
No, not the board.
okay.
Yeah.
So my question is, when we look at, all employees, does that also mean all of our bargained employees too? In other words, our union employees are also a part of this?
Absolutely,
That's-
Mr. Chair.
The vast majority of our staff is.
About 2/3 are part of a union group.
So the other question I have is, by engaging in this process, does, let's say that there is found to be discrepancies in level of compensation in particular areas. By going through this process, does that then, I'll say mandate us to make those adjustments? Or is that still at the discretion of leadership within the county?
Mr. Chair, does not mandate
There's
a
no
change by the
mandates.
county. It's all to get information to bring back to the board.
Okay.
Yep.
I've lost it. I'll come back to it.
When it comes back, you're gonna just say it came back and that's not a problem.
You'll know where to find us if it's after
Yeah.
the fact.
Gentlemen,
Good.
Commissioner Casper,
Mr. Chair, just a kind of an aside question. So if this indeed, this comp and class study moves forward, do we need to notify the union heads as well that this is taking place? There's not a big rub going on?
Mr. Chair, we will work very closely with our union groups in this process.
Very good.
Commissioner Lemire, it came back to you.
Yeah, it came back to me. One of the reasons this is before us is because of the union negotiations. That was one of the concerns that they wanted. They wanted this comp and class. And we didn't guarantee them that we would do it, but we did say that we will look into doing it. And that's partially the reason I believe that we got the contract signed. And if we're not gonna follow through with at least trying to get what the comp and class decides, then you should vote no on this. Otherwise, if you're gonna do a comp and class, we should at least try our best to accommodate what the outcome is.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemire. Very well stated. All right, any further questions at this time?
One last point.
All right.
When we do this comp and collision. Sliding.
Avoid that.
Classification. So again, maybe this is something that we'll discuss down the road. Are they gonna use all the people down in the counties, down in the cities? Or, you know, I'm saying because, oh boy, they're paying somebody $1 an hour, we're only paying 25 cents. That's not how it works, correct?
That's what we're here for. That's what we're gonna pay these people for.
The vendors will look at a comparable county. So they're going to look at counties that are both comparable in size, population, tax base, those types of things.
If during union negotiations, and I know you're aware of this, but for the sake of argument, there is 15 counties. I'm just making that up because I don't know the number, but I'm pretty close, I think, that are compared to Morrison County.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
The last time the county went to mediation,
Yep.
which they used the comparables to find a discovery or an outcome, they chose 13 counties. And that list is out there. It is published and that's our starting point. And to make sure that those are still our comparable counties that to meet all those things that Beth just described.
Anything further? We don't have a motion. We have not allowed a discussion.
I don't know if that's done.
Yep.
I do have a resolution, to read for you
Yep.
for your consideration.
And I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. Morrison County Lost Revenue, ARPA, allocation to conduct a compensation and classification study. Whereas Morrison County has received funds through the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, intended for building a strong, resilient, and equitable recovery by making investments that support long-term growth and opportunity. Whereas Morrison County Administration has identified the need to conduct a compensation and classification study to ensure appropriate and equitable compensation relationships within the organization. And whereas the last full compensation and classification study was conducted in 1996. And whereas Morrison County has sent requests for proposals to potential vendors to perform the study. Therefore, be it resolved, the Morrison County Board of Commissioners authorize the county administrator to enter into a contract and appropriate up to $70,000, which includes contingency funds of lost revenue, formerly ARPA funds, towards a compensation and classification study.
Thank you, Beth. I'd look for a motion.
I'd make a motion.
Got a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Gentlemen, we've had a lot of discussion. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I just might add one thing that Melissa said, it's been 27 years since we've had this done. And as much as I hate spending the money and as much as it scares me to see what the outcome is, I think it's the right thing to do. Not only because it's been so long, but also because that was part of the union negotiations.
Further discussion? I don't know where the money came from 27 years ago, nor do I care. 27 years ago, it happened. Today, I just want to be very clear where the up to $70,000 will come from, and I want someone to address that to me. Where is that money going?
Mr. Chair, that will come from our lost revenue ARPA allocation that the county's received.
And that ARPA money, for the sake of argument, is money that came from the government during COVID, et cetera, that we have in the bank, if you will, and we have to spend that money, by
Has to be committed by December 31st of 2024 and spent by December 31st of 2026. Or
thus, the topic of discussion that we're having right now is to conduct this compensation classification study. For once in our lives, we can safely say that this really is not going to be levy money at all.
the study will not. You're correct, Mr. Chair.
That's all I needed. Gentlemen, further discussion.
Mr. Chair, if I may, our current open position percentage in Morrison County is 1%.
Mr. Chair, we're less than 1%. If you, there's 4 positions open, there's 340 positions in the county. 2 of the 4 are open till filled. They're perpetual part-time positions. So we have 2 positions that are vacant out of over 300. So we're less than 1%.
That answer for you, Commissioner?
That answers that question. I had another question in regards to pay or compensation and what may be learned on that when we have exit meetings with employees leaving the organization. But I think that may be improper to ask, so I will hold from asking that question, Mr. Chair.
Gentlemen, any further discussion? Hearing none, this is going to be a roll call vote. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Casper.
Aye.
And myself, Commissioner Jelinski, is an aye vote. This motion passes. This resolution passes. It looks to me like we just bit off some more work.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We will hit the ground running.
And we're going to have many more discussions in a very short, in a very short time period. So that's fine. Thank you very, very much, both of you.
Gentlemen.
Appreciate your time.
Hope it goes well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you, Gales.
I'm going to look to our administrator for anything further today.
Mr. Chair, I have one other item, and that is to request the board to move into a closed session following the committee reports and schedule review. If I can read the resolution for closed session.
Please.
Whereas Morrison County Attorney and outside counsel have requested the opportunity to discuss litigation strategy with the Morrison County Board of Commissioners. And whereas the Morrison County Board of Commissioners desire to invoke the attorney-client privilege and discuss litigation confidentially with the county attorney and outside counsel. And whereas pursuant to Minnesota statute, section 13D05, subdivision 3B, the board by resolution may close the meeting as permitted by the attorney-client privilege. Now therefore be resolved, Morrison County Board Commissioner hereby closes the county board meeting October 24th and will close the county board meeting to discuss the status of ongoing litigation strategy.
And we will do that after.
After the committee reports and schedule, then Ms. Tabitha can get documents in order.
Gentlemen, are we square with what the administrator just explained?
Yep.
All right, we will move into our calendars, if you will. And I believe we're going to start on October 29th, and we're going to go through November 11th. If it's all the same to everyone, I'll start with mine. On the 30th at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to be at a State Emergency Communications Board planning meeting at the city of St. Cloud. On Tuesday, the 31st, 8:30 in the morning, we have a planning meeting here at the Government Center. And that meeting's canceled, so let me see. On November 1st at 11 o'clock in the morning, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Executive Committee meeting. That would be virtual. On the 2nd, 10 o'clock in the morning, Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Legislative Committee meeting. And at 1 o'clock that afternoon, was invited to the Rural Minnesota SEP Little Falls Workforce facility here at the Crestliner Building for an open house. I expect I'll go to that at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 2nd of November. On the 3rd of November at 8:30 in the morning, we all have a TSWAC meeting at the landfill. I think that's usually very often that's canceled because of deer hunting, but I think we beat deer hunting. On the, on the 7th of November at 9 o'clock in the morning, we have a county board meeting. The 9th at 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Next Generation 911 meeting that I anticipate to be at. And let's see, through the 11th, that should do it for me. Commissioner Wincher.
All right, and Mr. Chair, you stated that the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment on the 31st has been canceled. So that will not be.
Very good. You're correct. That is canceled.
And then on the 6th, I'll be at Little Falls Township at 6 p.m. on a Monday. On the 7th, I'll be at the City Council of Royalton at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. And otherwise, you covered me on the rest of them, so
Okay.
thank you.
Commissioner Lemire,
You guys got me.
Commissioner Bland,
Nothing to add.
Commissioner Casper.
The only thing I have is on November 2nd on Thursday is 10 o'clock Central Minnesota Council on Aging. The only thing about that, I'm not sure if I'm going to Zoom that or be there in person. I need to confirm that.
Okay, very good. Does that take care of schedules? Does that take care of schedules with everyone?
Yes.
Anything further from anyone?
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Just one item, just for the public, is Morrison County Government Center and staff will be participating in the Chamber's trick or treating event there on the 31st.
Excellent. And that will go from what time to what time?
But 3:30 to 4:30, but of course for the Government Center, we'll be closed there no, we'll be 3:30, 4:30.
We're
Yeah,
open.
you're right. In town, they go till 5.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that.
But here it's going to be from 3:30 to 4:30. Very good. All right. Look for a motion
For the closed session.
for the close to move into
moved,
a
Mr.
closed
Chair.
session.
I'm looking for a bathroom break before we go into closed.
We've got a motion.
I'll redo my motion for Randy.
Okay, got a motion. Is there a second? Second. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to move into closed session. Those in favor? Opposed? That motion passes. Let's take a 5.
Frank, I see you on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks, Frank. We're gonna take 5 and we'll be back to you.
Perfect, thank you.